Glad to have you back. Now, we are still coming to you live from our Lagos studios. Nigeria decides, and most of the polling units have opened as at this morning, and voting has commenced successfully in some areas. But now, Marianne, we have reports from Rivers State that no less than 3 people are feared dead. Now, I know Rivers State is close to home to you, but this isn't supposed to, we shouldn't be having breakout of violence in Rivers State, knowing that the APC is a fielding candidate, and it's almost a clear run for the PDP.
Yeah, it's glaring because the APC had lost their opportunity to participate in the 2019 elections at the state level because of the infighting in the party. So Governor Wike, who was the PDP candidate, had, declared that, look, you know what, it's going to be smooth sailing for this election. And he said that the APC should go and put his house in order because, he just feels that he's going to
But no matter the shake-up, they wouldn't still have any running in the election.
I don't know, but maybe we should ask this gentleman. We still have our guests in the studio. So let's start with you, Mr. Shopita. Now, you obviously have some background information as to what's happening in Rivers State. The APC lost all of its candidature to a court. Well, it started by an infighting, Senator Magnus Abe versus Tony Cole versus Amechi, and now we have Rivers State boiling. As at Thursday, soldiers were seen parading, the city 2 days to the elections, and today 3 people dead.
It's almost as if these people just want to fight. Just for the sake of it, like when you have 2 kids and they go at each other, you've given them sweets, you've given them everything that they've asked for, but they just want to fight. I don't understand this at all. The APC, like you said, does not have any candidates at all in any of the elections in Rivers State. So it's between the PDP and the others. Now, those others, to a very large extent, are not on ground in terms of the machinery and the framework grassroots presence. So one would have expected that Rivers would be taken off the table of hotspots. But we all knew anyway that it wasn't going to be that way because of the almost personal angst between the key political players in that state. And, we're saying off air now that Rotimi Amechi is supporting another party. Since APC is no longer in the picture, he's supporting another candidate from another party and hoping to unseat Governor Wike. But if you have followed Rivers State politics over the last 5, 6, 7 years, you know that Wike
no matter what happened to
Wike is entrenched. Even if APC was running, they would not win Rivers State. Rivers State is a PDP state. It's like saying the APC would go to Akwa Ibom or Cross Rivers and
again,
win.
The elections are still on, so we can't talk about political parties and which state owns.
Fair enough.
But then again, the situation as we hear is that 3 people, and it's just barely into elections.
We're not done yet. Unfortunately, before the end, if you remember the last elections, the presidential elections, when we started the studio analysis in the morning, everything looked, pretty calm and all of that. But then as the day wore on, the reports started coming in. So I'm sure that we're still in to, for some surprises as to what's going to be happening in those places. It's very, very unfortunate.
Barrister Jide, now, there is one Michael Abednego in Ahoda, West Local Government Area, a former woman leader whose identity hasn't been revealed, and one man also reportedly killed in Doni. Now, you said it was too early for us to say the elections were going too smoothly, and having this report, that alludes to that fact.
The question we should be asking is that why should electoral processes be like a war situation? It's because of management of resources. We said that part of the product is having an organized control. So it goes beyond what we see. Whoever is in charge of a state manages the resources of that state. And while some of us may be thinking on the basis of, it's just for 4 years. No, this election is connected to the election in 2023, connected to the election in 2027, and on and on. So for those with key political interests, they don't want to lose political relevance. And so whether one party has candidates or not is beyond just producing a candidate now. It's what happens next. if my relevance diminishes for another 8 years, who am I in this state? And that's why you have all this power play. And it confirms one thing. I've said it. It is possible to make Nigeria secured in 6 weeks.
How's that supposed to, well, before we take that thought, we have Victor Izama. He's the head of news, Today FM here, there in Port Harcourt in River State. And he's on the phone. He would like to speak with us now. Hello, Victor. Can you hear us?
Miriam, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Tell us exactly what your people in the field have been feeding you as to what's happening in the elections in River State.
Miriam, the major concern so far is reports of voter apathy in many parts of River State. And it is surprising that this report is more dominant in Port Harcourt and Obiakpo. These are two local government areas where they have very large number of voters, where usually, according to the history of elections in River State, produces the highest number of figures. But it is disturbing that in many parts of Obiakpo, where the governor comes from, we seem to be having these reports. And then it's also important to let you know that there have been reports of ballot box snatching in other parts of the state, especially in the rural areas where we do not have enough coverage. Majority of the journalists covering these elections have restricted themselves, to the upland, places that are close to Port Harcourt because of the incidents that happened in the February 23rd elections. But from the few journalists that we have, out there in the suburbs, we are hearing about serious cases of ballot box snatching, and then men in military uniforms, have been arresting some leaders of certain political parties because of their operation, of mopping up arms, the operation that started since Wednesday. We also got a very serious report from the Ogoni axis. Bori is the headquarters of Ogoni that houses 4 local government areas, in fact, 5 local government areas of Kana, Okana, Tai, and Oyigbo. And then it also covers the entire River Southeast Senatorial District, extending to Andoni local government and Opobo. But right there we hear that majority of the ad hoc staff of INEC are members of a certain political party. The returning officers for the governorship election in Ogoni is said to be the sibling of a certain federal lawmaker here in River State. So other parties need to raise alarm over that concern. They said they've written a petition to INEC with the names of these people that were published at the Bori INEC Collation Center. So these are some of the concerns. These are some of the reports we're having so far, Miriam.
Now, quickly, Victor, as well, we've heard so far that 3 persons are reportedly dead in Ahoda West local government area, and then 2 others from Andoni. How true is this, and has there been any increase in the casualty figures from the reports you've had so far?
Okay, I can't confirm the figure of those, but I can tell you authoritatively that very early this morning, as early as 7 a.m., we had the report of the first casualty from Ahoda West, from Akinima precisely, where a certain young man was touched by members of other political parties. We don't know what ensued, but we have also heard of 2 people being killed in the same Akinima, but we can't confirm that because we don't have the visuals yet. And then in other local government areas, yes, there are reports of pockets of violence here and there, but what we can confirm is that the agencies seem to be on top of the situation because from comparing this, what is happening today to what happened last week, I can tell you that the elections really have been largely peaceful. In Abonima local government area where elections could not hold on February 23, election is holding there peacefully. There's been no report of any gunshot or any attack. In Bonny, where elections did not hold on 23rd of February, election is also holding in Bonny as we speak. Election is also holding in Ikwere local government where results were not turned in, and also in Emoha. So, but there are reports of violence, really. You can't really take that away from River State.
So you're telling us that generally the mood in most places that we thought were, like hotspots is somewhat calm. But then the first report of death is coming from Akinima, and you said as early as 6 a.m. this morning.
Yes, as early as 7 a.m. This morning. What we saw from last night was that many political leaders, decided to keep vigil at the rack centers, so they could monitor all the materials and to ensure that the materials were not moved, while they were not there. So probably some altercation may have ensued that led to that casualty. The guy was stabbed. We have the pictures, but the other two people, we also had two people that have been killed, also in Akidima, but we can't confirm that.
David, I just want to, Victor, I beg your pardon. I just want to find out, have you been to any polling unit, especially since you are calling us from Obiakpo, to see if the INEC officials showed up early enough, if materials showed up early enough, if people have come out to vote, although you said you sensed some form of voter apathy. But let's talk about Obiakpo since it's where you are.
Yes, Marianne, Obiakpo, it's very, INEC has been very impressive in terms of deployment of materials within Port Harcourt and Obiakpo. As early as 7 a.m., materials were already leaving the rack centers, and as early as 8 a.m., voters are already positioned in their polling units, and voting even started as early as 8 a.m. So the whole of Obiakpo really has been peaceful. Other communities around Obiakpo, where you have the University of Port Harcourt that shares boundary with the Ikwere local government, there's also been peaceful. There's been peaceful deployment of easy deployment of INEC materials. The deployment has been very, very good so far. So I think in terms of INEC's preparedness for this election, we could give them on the scale of 10, maybe 6 to 10. But so far it has been good. We just hope that the politicians will not disrupt the process.
Thank you very much, Victor, for speaking with us. Victor Azema is the head of News Today FM in Port Harcourt. Thank you for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
All right. So, gentlemen, I don't know where to start from, but let's start from the fact that INEC was interesting as to deployment of materials. Everything went out early and voting commenced early, even in places that we think are sensitive. But let's put that side by side with Lagos. What could be the challenge? I'll start with you.
Well, INEC has the national body, and then of course you devolve everything down to the states, local government. So I think what's probably happening there is whoever is in charge there has just been up to scratch with doing his job well, and because like we've said time and again, all the factors that will result in early or late arrival of materials are known beforehand, and you should have planned for it. So really what we're hearing coming out of River State is what should be the norm. So where it is not the norm, we need to ask questions as to what's gone wrong. So obviously something has gone very wrong with Lagos State, and we can only hope that it's isolated and it's not general across the country.
Barrister.
Yeah, I agree. Since we're having the elections in 29 states out of the 36, so you expect that the narrative will be different from one state to the other. But we should look forward to a situation where what is obtainable in one state goes on a global scale. That is trying to approach excellence, and that is when we succeed in trying to minimize the forces behind complicating our processes. You know, like the reports we are getting from River State. Why are people interested in hitting up the polity, bringing force, disrupting processes? So when we deal with those issues, perhaps when some of the identified stakeholders are brought to justice, not just to book. Many have been brought to book and not to justice. And you know that you go out there and disrupt. This is a national process. It's not, I mean, we should have that national interest. And national interest must be protected. If you know there are consequences, you don't even think about it at all. But where there are no consequences, you know, if it pays you to mobilize force, you go ahead and do that. And if you're not accountable, you know, you continue. Talking
about consequences, like you mentioned now, in Victor's report, it said men in military uniform were seen arresting political party actors,
members of a certain
political party, in a bid to mop up arms. Now, how do you expect this development to go finally? When we talk about investigation and ensuring that there are consequences.
Problems, but we deny them. And denial is one of the responses to crisis in psychology. Is it the business of the military to go after those who are piling ammunition? We have the police. Right now, we are rendering our police irrelevant. The roles of the military are clearly defined. They should be concerned about war situations, defending the security integrity of the country, particularly in respect to international invasions and stuff like that. But where are we now? But I was listening to the INEC chairman, who himself respected the provisions of the law, that police should be involved. But in a situation where you have crises that are beyond the purview of the police, you can invite the military in. But now that before elections, military men are operating, I expect, if this is Nigeria, that the military will come out and deny that they are not their men, that they are a militia or whatever in military uniform. Exactly. And that takes us to the Customs Service, which is an agency of the government. Because the Constitution says all agencies must work in line with the provisions of the Constitution. What is the role of the customs? If military gears are imported, or are we now saying that anybody can have access
not just
to
military gear, we also see people in police uniforms
exactly
as well.
And when you have this level of ammunition, are we in a war? I asked a question in particular when we spend some billions of dollars depositing for a Tucano jet, and I asked myself, is war now an industry?
But let's not forget that we have insurgency in the north, where soldiers in 2018 complained that they were using obsolete equipment to fight the insurgents.
I mentioned that before we had to take the reports from the field. It is possible to secure this country in 6 weeks.
How?
I respect the professional competence of the Nigerian military. You go to how we perform the NECOMOG, but it is a matter of will, not even political will now. Because you can see the political will working in the deployment to secure electoral victory. If we bring this to a national will and say we don't want this problem, we can do it in 6 weeks. I asked a question. This Boko Haram we are complaining about, people who are killing, if they go to Aso Villa to shoot 3 gunshots, in 1 week they are all forgotten. You see, we saw what happened in Abia State. Where is Nnamdi Kanu today? The Python dance. And that's why some of us are asking, can we come together as a country and decide on what we want to condone? Insecurity has cost us so much. Who is surprised that Nigeria has been described as the capital of poverty in the world? Because we don't have security. Security is an element that is paramount in taking business decisions. If I'm going to invest anywhere, I must first be sure that I will have a sustainable benefit from my investment. So these are the issues. And okay, now We have read about how commissioner of police were redeployed and deployed. These things are possible. But it depends on whose interest is involved. And that is why we need a governance system that is blind like justice and nationalistic in approach. That, hey, what vision do we have for this country? We have given examples. Rwanda was in a terrible state of genocide. And a leader came and said, okay, now we have used ethnicity to disrupt the process of progress in this country. And it became a crime for you to even claim belonging to any ethnic group. And they've come together. We are Rwandans. And today, basic education in Rwanda is 100% compliant. All right? Today, healthcare is almost free. I don't want to be absolute. In Rwanda. In fact, right now they have what is called Uber Blood. Uber Blood is delivering healthcare facilities to remote areas by drones. Reducing the time, for instance, from about 3 hours to about 45 minutes. And several lives have been saved. At the last monitoring, Rwanda made about $400 million from tourism, people coming to watch gorillas. And they are moving to making $800 million because they have brought, you see, that country is a country to focus on. And that is, and you now bring another African country, Tanzania, where the president has shifted attention from wastefulness to developing facilities. So these are issues. The moment we have that nationalistic interest, you realize that unity will be restored, faith in Project Nigeria will be restored. You need to find out how many Nigerians have disappeared from this country in recent times.
A lot.
Then peace will be restored. And when you have the peace, you have the progress.
Shagun, quickly now, as we're wrapping up conversations in less than 2 minutes, how and when do we call for reinforcement now, using River State as a case study? Yes, there are small pockets of violence, but things can escalate into bigger, uncontrollable situations. The military is there to salvage the situation. There is no how we are going to disassociate that. But when do we now say we are aligning a or creating a strategy? Because the last reports, the ballot boxes were snatched, and Marianne defined it as the marine spirits taking the boxes. So at what level do you expect synergy now as we are counting down to 2 p.m.?
I mean, whatever is going to happen, you know, it's never coincidental. It's all scripted. So for me, I think it's a bit late in the day, you know, to call in for reinforcements and what have you. The places that are going to have this ballot box snatching, electoral violence, they planned it yesterday night or 2 days ago. And the plans are being implemented now. So the only thing you can have, what should ordinarily have happened is that the security architecture apparatus should have had the intelligence beforehand.
Don't you think that the political parties understand what INEC has clearly stated out now? This time around, you need a quarter of the 2/3 of the votes cast across the different local government areas. So they know that if they are not able to reach that amount, they would have their way.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying that so by now we should have intelligence with the security architecture so that they can preempt these acts of violence and acts of ballot snatching and preventing people from achieving the 2/3 or 1/3 or whatever it is. If you don't have that in place, then all you can do is react. And that's the best we're going to have. We're going to have police, maybe DSS, maybe the military stepping in to prevent all of these things from happening. And that's the best we can hope for. At the end of the day, we need to start looking at ourselves as citizens, get involved in this process, and try to make public office unattractive so that people stop killing each other because you want to serve. Why should you kill to serve me?
Well, we got to go for that break, and it is the news break. It's almost the top of the hour at 12 o'clock. But when we come back after that break, we're still taking more information from River State. Hopefully, we can get something from Maiduguri, from our correspondents there. And we'll see what's going on in Kaduna State with Governor El Rufai.
Exactly. I just want to see images from Maraba this morning.
And see what's happening in Abuja. Again, we'll go back to our correspondent in Abuja. Stay with us. It's till Nigeria decides. Stay tuned.